Hello, learners. Hope you are keeping well and studying well for the exams that's coming up, the prelim exams, and of course, eventually the final, eh? I know you have requested about these new sections for November and 22 and May 2023. And there are many of these sections that I have done already. If you look down here, it's clearly show that I have completed the sugarcane in my earlier programs. And so this one is done. If you look at my previous programs on the prescribed mineral, gold was already done. And also prescribed core areas. I have done Gauteng for you, and recently the Durban Pine Town. So what is left with the new sections for November 2022 and May, June 2023 is the Dube Trade Port and the Maputo Corridor. So let's get going. Now, the Dube Trade Port, as you see here, this is the industrial development zone. All right. And of course, we're going to cover also the Maputo Corridor Spatial Development Initiative. Okay. So let's start off now with the Dube Trade Port. And of course, when we look at this, we have to look at the definition and the differences between an IDZ and an SDI. I've done that in my previous programs. So what I'm going to do for you today is just a brief difference between the two. And then, of course, the map showing the prescribed IDZ or SDI. In this case, it's the Maputo Corridor SDI and the Dube Trade Port IDZ. Factors influencing location and main industrial activities, factors favor and hinder development of your prescribed IDZ and SDI, and of course the economic and social impacts. Now, location and favor seems to be very, very close, so I'm going to do them together. And also the social and economic impacts, which I'm also going to do for both because they have a lot of similarities and it's easier to study. So let's start off with the Dube Trade Port Industrial Development Zone. All right. Oh, before that, I promised you, I'm going to look at the difference between the two. Okay, just a brief, of course, in my previous program, I did it in more detail, and you can view that under IDZs and SDIs. Here, industrial development zones. Okay, so the aim here is to encourage manufacturing, okay, in areas. And the idea here is to use the resources of those areas. When I mean resources, I mean the natural resources, whatever other infrastructural resources are there, and also the human resource, which is important, you know, in terms of that and building up the skills, etc., of the people in the area. And the main idea is to produce goods instead of importing them. Benefication. All right, so we're going to produce our own goods instead of importing goods, and of course, eventually export them. Okay, remember, this is industrial decentralization in our country, where we had these core areas that you discussed earlier, or I have discussed earlier, and you have done it in class. Now we're saying let's move industrial development to all parts of South Africa. So we want to produce instead of importing. Another thing that we noticed, they are generally located around transport routes that have international links, like a harbor or an airport, as we do in Dube, all right, TradePort IDZ. And of course, it's obvious that it needs to be next to transport routes with international links, because you really want to export. And that's the emphasis, to promote exports. So actually, it's one area, it's a zone Okay, in the past you've done Saldanha Bay, etc. Now you do this one zone, this one area, focusing on a major transport route with international links. Okay, so let's look at the Spatial Development Initiative. Yeah, aim is to promote growth in areas that are underdeveloped but have economic potential. Maybe there's transport infrastructure existing there, there are industries existing, all right, but it's underdeveloped. So maybe a road or a railway line leading to a port like the Maputo Corridor, but it's a corridor, it's a spatial thing running across the area. Industrial Development Zone is a zone centered around a transport route with international links. This is like a corridor, a spatial area which links up various areas. Okay, and the idea here is for new jobs, okay, improved infrastructure, and to attract foreign investors to come in there, bring in the money, you understand, and of course build the infrastructure. So we want to build these underdeveloped areas, but it's along a spatial corridor. That's what we talk about, a spatial development initiative. All right, so we got our difference between the two. Now we can get on to the Dube Trade Port IDZ first. Okay, and there we look at it here, and you can see now already that concept, okay, of the international link via the King Shaka International Airport, and the Dube Trade Port is actually having it as its core. Okay, so let's look at where it's located. It's in KwaZulu-Natal, and one thing about it, it's freight-orientated aerotropolis with King Shaka International Airport at its core. Okay, that's the center. It's going to be sending by flight, etc. Okay, what is the aim? Or before I even go there, I know some of you have problems with certain concepts. When we say freight, they are goods transported in bulk by truck, train, ship, or aircraft. And an aerotropolis is a metropolitan sub-region whose infrastructure, land use, and economy is related to an airport. That's why we've got a freight-orientated aerotropolis, where cargo is going to be sent, or freight is going to be sent over, bulk goods are going to be sent. Okay, so here the aim is to develop and promote access to global trade and open up new opportunities for production and export of goods. Learners, can you see how clearly the idea of the IDZ coming in? To produce and export instead of importing. So the Dube Trade Port IDZ follows the same pattern. Okay. Of course, following the guidelines, we have to look at the main industry sectors. Now, in this area, we find that the main one and the main focus is on commercial and light industries. Okay, obviously it's by the emphasis on the air transport, so it's going to be commercial and light. More bulky goods will go through the harbors. Not that it's not going to have that, but the main focus is on commercial and light industries with integrated logistics. Logistics refers to the overall processing, managing how resources are acquired, stored, transported to the final destination. So that involves a lot of processes. Okay, so that's also integrated logistics, moving things around, storing them at the airport. Okay, so, and manufacturing infrastructure, the buildings, etc. So it's big emphasis on that. So let's go a little more specific. All right, airport related activities, that's cargo operations, warehousing. Can you see all these logistics here? Obviously, because it's has the airport as its main emphasis of an international link. Okay, aerospace and aviation linked manufacturing and related services, manufacturing, etc., linked to the airport. What's more suitable? Your light industries, etc., your commercial functions and things that will be sent through the air transport. And then we have agriculture with agro-processing. Okay, we can even have your aquaculture based on your water, etc., and things. Okay, electronics, manufacturing and assembly. Okay, where electronics is being busy done. All right, so we have, all right, the manufacturing, the medical and pharmaceutical production and distribution. All right, the health, so it's also a light industry, and the clothing and textiles. There we have it here. Can you see? And then automotive component manufacturing. All right, where you're manufacturing all the parts, etc. So quite a few industries. It's quite an exciting project. Quite a few industries are coming through, but generally they are light because of the airport and the air transport of stuff. Okay, so let me get back here. All right. So there's a lot of different economic zones in this area. By the way, learners, we talk about spatial economic or special economic zones. It's a term now used for IDZs. But if you look at your exam guideline, it's written as an industrial development zone. So if you're going and doing research, etc., you'll find the word special economic zone being attached to the Dube Trade Port. Don't let that concern you. We will still, when we teach these things, you understand, we still actually look at the guideline and we see that industrial development zone is still written there. So with the exam guideline, remember, we must follow the exam guideline. Okay, so Dube Trade Port, we find TradeZone, which is a light industrial area with electronics and pharmaceutical. Okay, aerospace manufacturing. These are all the different zones that have been allocated in this area. Then we have the cargo terminal, state-of-art cargo handling facility. Okay, and this is linked to the Shaka International Airport. All right. Then we have the agri-zone, an integrated agricultural precedent. Okay, dealing with manufacturing of agricultural products. Then we have Dube City, a business, commercial, and hospitality precedent. Okay, that's what we find, where we find all the businesses happening here, the commercial functions, and obviously it has to be hospitality, maybe your restaurants, your accommodation, etc., for people. Okay, so they can come in to invest and they got a good place to stay, etc. And then we have the Dube iConnect, the cutting-edge telecommunications provider. Okay, and premier cloud computing service. Now you all know more about this cloud, where you can collect information, store them. So even the iConnect and the telecommunication and the computer stuff is all being upped here. Okay, so you know more about that. When you talk about cloud, I know cumulonimbus clouds, but you know more about that, all right? So all these things have come in, and it's a variety again that has been brought in the area. Okay, factors favoring, and I'm going to emphasize first the transport infrastructure, which gives access to international markets. Okay, and that big one here again, that's an advantage or favor the location also. All right, it's not just favor the development, but also the location down here. Okay, my writing is getting better since the last time. Location. Okay, so I'm not writing, I'm just enjoying myself a little bit. I dropped out the I. Okay, location also. Okay, so it's the Shaka International Airport. All right, and then we have the harbor services Not far from the Dube Trade Port is the Durban Harbor, and then Richards Bay also, not far at all. So it can be used. And then we have a good road and railway network in the area and linking out to other regions of South Africa. All right. And then we find that the Dube is built upon to develop global competitiveness. All right. And it has a seemingly integrated intersea modal, integrates intermodal sea, rail, road, and infrastructure. All right. So it links up the sea, rail, and road infrastructure well. There's a good linkage, so stuff can move through. You understand? The airport, plus it's also linked to all the infrastructure in the area. It's not just lying loose, they're well linked. Storage facilities, the warehouses at the airport, the cargo terminals. There's a large amount of development land also available beside the large cargo terminals. All right. Cargo actually refers to goods and merchandise conveyed by ship, airplane, or vehicle. So same like freight. You understand? It carries it down there. So cargo terminals, loading, all specific to different goods, etc., that can be sent by airplane. All right. Then there's a large amount of development land available also. Okay. That the land there, the bare land available around there, allows opportunity for further expansion in the area. Okay, more factories, more infrastructure, etc. So you don't get stuck that you can't build further. You've got available land that's there to build on. Factors that hinder, all right? There's not many factors as yet. They could, of course, I have to highlight always the strain on electricity supply. Okay, that is one of the issues, and of course, load shedding, etc., are factors that hinder developments, a reality in South Africa. Then traffic congestion and pollution, from my knowledge, not that serious at the moment, but it'll be more of a challenge when more development takes place. So it is going to come up as more and more development takes place, that this area could suffer more traffic congestion and pollution. Okay, let's go on. We've covered most of it. As I told you, the social and economic impacts will be covered at the end. Then the Maputo Corridor, and you can see it, eh? It's a corridor. It's not just one zone, okay? Here, transportation route for regional trade. It covers a few countries and it covers provinces of South Africa, okay? Well, as well as to international markets, all right, because of the port of Maputo. So we're looking at South Africa, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Botswana, through to Mozambique. So quite a few countries, all right? So we talk about regional trade between the countries as well as international markets. So what a beautiful sort of concept that has been developed with SDIs, where you can link countries and trade, okay? And also you have an international harbor available for you. South African provinces covered is in Mpumalanga, Gauteng, and also links Limpopo. And one of the big aspects of the transport infrastructure is the Maputo Corridor toll road, the N4. Okay? Now, the Maputo Corridor runs from Witbank in Mpumalanga through Nelspruit and to the capital of Mozambique, that is Maputo. That's where the harbor is. Okay? Then, some of the industrial activities focused on, in fact, there are 130 investment opportunities identified here, all right? For instance, for infrastructure provision, for agriculture, for mining, for energy, for chemicals, and manufacturing. So it deals with all these things, infrastructure development also, whether it's your transport, power lines, etc., agriculture, okay, and then of course the mining, which then creates the raw materials, okay, energy supply, there's chemicals being produced, and the general manufacturing of everything. All right, so we look at some of them. I know we need to look at the products itself. I just put in the region to give you an idea in case you are in these areas. You can look for these things. Steel finished products around Johannesburg, vehicles and components in Pretoria, ferroalloy and chrome in Macharisdorp, agricultural products in Limpopo province, Nelspruit, chemicals in Secunda, and cement in Rustenburg. So we can see all these components and cars being developed in Pretoria, the agricultural products in Limpopo. So also quite a variety of industrial development and industries that are focused on in this area. Specific factors that favor development and location of the Maputo Corridor. Once again, with the SDI is the transport infrastructure advantage. The port of Maputo, which gives them international links, all right, sending the goods out. It attracts the investors to the area. The Maputo Corridor toll road, that's the N4, which links up quite a few areas here. Can you see it? And then, of course, it goes off to the port of Maputo. And then the railway line from Rosano Garcia to Maputo. There's also a lovely railway line coming up. All these things have been upgraded. If you looked at the N4 road in the past, and now it's got proper lanes, etc. In fact, the Maputo harbor also has been made deeper so it can take bigger ships coming in, etc. All right, raw materials found along the SDI, that also we need raw materials to produce. It's cheaper if it's in the area, all right, instead of importing them. A shorter landside transit time for regions. For all these regions here, this is a shorter way to a harbor. If you look at Durban, Richards Bay, etc., they have longer distances to travel. This actually makes it easier. And if it's a shorter landside, this is the seaside, this is the landside, it definitely cuts on costs. All right, so therefore the landside and freight cost benefits, those are the bulky goods being sent by ship, etc., will be cheaper because of the shorter distance. It's less congestion, unlike Durban, where Durban has subsequent transport delays that can take days or even weeks, all right, when the harbor is overloaded. So as you done in Durban, Pinetown region, you found that's one of the disadvantages. And in this case also, you find that Durban is not, Port of Maputo is not so congested as Durban, which will allow for less delays. Okay. Factors that hinder. Now, the Lebombo, Rosano, Garcia border post, you understand, where you have to cross and go into the area. All right, I'm just going to get my highlighter again. I don't think it's highlighting there. So this is a challenge, the border post. All right, the Lebombo, Rosano, Garcia border post. Because what happens? There are tourists using it. Freight, cargo, all your bulky goods, passengers using the rail, etc., cars. And all of a sudden, with all these things, as you can see here, it jams it up. So there's congestion. There's additional costs in terms of moving, all right? Fuel costs, stalling, etc. Delay of cargo delivery. Customers want their cargo. You understand? They want the goods. Unfortunately, this delays it. Passengers are also delayed, all right? And time for open border is limited. It has changed. There are longer periods heading towards 24/7, but still there are some inefficiencies also in this area that may delay. So this is a factor that hinders. Investors want goods moving through, industrialists want good moving through and getting it to the customers so they can produce more. Unfortunately, this does create delays. Then let's look at eventually, and remember, learners, what I told you, that the social and economic impacts are more or less the same for both. So I'm going to discuss them there and use the TradePort Dube Trade Port IDZ or the Maputo Corridor SDI as examples. All right. The first one is obvious: availability of employment opportunities in the industries. So whether it's the SDI or that, whether it's Maputo or Dube, industries are coming up. So one of the social advantages, obviously, there'll be more employment for the people. They'll get jobs. All right. More investors in the area, greater income to the area. All right. We look at then the earning potential increases. All right. More investors, more skilled jobs, etc. Better income into the area. All right. Of course, poverty is reduced through employment. People have jobs, and of course, they can work, and therefore they're earning money, less poverty. All right. Accessibility for services, facilities, example, education and health. All right. Services have to be built. People are working. And of course, the affordability of the services. Okay, so you're going to have education. Remember, industries are coming. More skills are needed. So more tertiary institutions, etc., are coming in. Okay, so all these things develop, better hospitals. So these are not only there for the industrialists, it's for the people of the area. And they can afford it also by being employed. So all those facilities improve. Of course, it's an improvement in the standard of living, because now it's not only taking away the poverty, but if people are earning better salaries, etc., therefore they can improve their lives. They can afford more luxuries, better housing. All right, so all those things. So in essence, it improves the quality of life of the people, and employment will allow them to afford their basic needs, etc. Okay, because now before they were struggling, now they could do it. And lastly, development of skills. As the Maputo Corridor has shown you, industries coming up. Dube Trade Port has showed you that there's more technology, more telecommunication. So we remember the emphasis of them is to develop the local people, not to bring in people from the outside. So all this technology and telecommunications, etc., will require skills. So therefore, it will develop skills also. Then we look at the economic impacts. Of course, it creates employment, all right, because of more industries, etc. Remember, employment is both a social and an economic factor. More people earning in larger markets for goods. So if more people earning the local markets will also buy things, which will make it more encouraging for investment, because you'll sell a significant amount in the local area. It promotes development of new and existing infrastructure. Of course, you have to do up the new the road, like the N4 toll road. All right, it was actually not a very good site, and they sort of redid it and upgraded it, and now it looks fantastic because they want the goods to go through. Of course, there'll be new infrastructure also, new roads, new linkages, new links to the road leading on to different places. The Maputo harbor is made deeper, right? It provides access to resources in the area, all right? Because now these roads, etc., will link in. There'll be more access to all the resources that can be used. Efficient transport networks to move raw materials and finished goods. Because of this development of transport networks, etc., the goods can be moved quicker. Raw materials can bring in quicker. So it encourages production and investors. Promotes domestic and international trade. Remember, This transport network, etc., or the SDI, passes through many of the provinces, or the significant number of the provinces in the north of South Africa, and also passes through various countries. So local trade can be put in effectively, plus the port of Maputo will give you international trade. Also looking at the Dube is the same thing, all right? Domestic trade, people will up their lives, our quality of life, they'll be employed, they'll be able to buy, and the airport can create international trade. I'm just giving you examples that you can link this. It contributes significantly to the GDP of South Africa, both Dube and Maputo Corridor. What is GDP? It's goods and services produced by a country for a year, or by citizens and, as you know, and non-citizens, all right, for a year. Okay, so it's goods and services. That's the emphasis. So isn't the IDZ and the SDI producing goods and services in the country, like the Dube and Maputo? So definitely it contributes to the GDP. It promotes investment in RSA. Once people see this, the Dube Trade Port and its linkages to the airport and its effectiveness for trade and industrial development, and the Maputo Corridor linking up so many sections or so many regions and so many countries, and then the Maputo Port, all right, they will definitely want to invest in South Africa. Buying power of locals increases. That's the multiplier effect. As I mentioned earlier on, they now employed, the locals are buying goods, so it has a multiplier effect. Money now, how the money circulates in the economy there. All right, so what happened? There'll be linked industries coming in to service the other industries, like motor car components will make it tires and whatever. So it's a multiplier effect. Improve quality of life. I think we need to put a scratch through that and put a big cross. I think I like social factors more. That's a social factor, so let's remove it. Okay. Skills development increases production. So as we mentioned, under social factor, the skills development, all the technology and the telecommunications and the clouds, and not the cumulonimbus clouds. So if skills development occurs, people will be using technology, production will increase, it'll go faster with technology. All right. Of course, infrastructure development, I like that, which I spoke earlier on. All right. So it's repeated here. I do apologize for that. And then improvement of services and facilities. Example, tourism results in more recreational facilities. Okay, so more services and facilities are being developed because of the need. People are coming in. As you see, we had all those hospitality things in the Dube Trade Port, IDZ also. Learners, I hope you've enjoyed the lesson, and I've kept to my promise and finished off all the new sections for 2022 November and 2023 June. All the best for the prelim exams and the final exams, and I know you'll do yourself, and I proud. Keep well. Goodbye.